Nobody will ever know anything about the piece except what their character knows. And the characters don't yet exist. When I invite an actor to take part in a project, I will say, please be in this film. I can't tell you what the film's about. I can't tell you who the character is, because you and I are going to collaborate to create that character. And you will never know anything about anything except what your character knows at all stages. I will invite an actor to take part on that basis. Everyone will have met each other and then forget that. Then the real work starts.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Mike Leigh is not an actor. For 1 year now on Back to One, I've been interviewing actors about their own unique approach to the acting craft. The only directors I've had on this show have been actor directors. Or in the case of Bo Burnham, he was accompanying a minor. I make the exception with Mike Leigh because I believe his process is the single most actor-centric way to make movies in the history of film. To sum it up very briefly, he starts without a script, and he has each actor develop their own characters with him separately. They then live and breathe as those characters before he gets them all together for long improvisations that he then distills into filmable scenes. By the time the actors get on the set to actually film the movie, they've already lived and breathed as the characters, and they've already worked out both practically and creatively every single thing that they are going to film. It is the most organic process imaginable for the actor. And I believe it's very important for us to understand how Mike Leigh works and why this is so helpful to actors and why it is so effective. And it has been effective in movies like Naked, Life is Sweet, Secrets and Lies, Happy-Go-Lucky, Vera Drake. The list goes on and on. So please enjoy this very special episode of Back to One with the legendary Mike Leigh. I start out all of my interviews with these actors in the same way, with the same question, entering into their process, which is, what is the first step you take toward getting into a character? Many of these actors have said something that I have found very odd, which is that the first step they take when they read a script is trying to see what their place is in the story, what their character's place is in the story. With you and your process, which is very meticulous in creating a character with an actor, the one thing they do not get is their place in the story. And I want you to tell me, first of all, how you can explain that actors, many actors would say that, and why that you feel that's not important.
Well, first of all, I think it's entirely understandable and legitimate for regular actors in a regular context, by which I mean not working in the idiosyncratic and unusual way that I work, to look at a script and ask themselves the natural question, what is my character's place in the whole story? It is counterproductive. There is no question that that the character does not have an overview of the story, right. And therefore, in a way, and it makes sense in the context of how I work, and it should make sense in any context, that it doesn't really help the actor to have an overview of the story. But we have to be clear, before we talk about anything else about this, that since you are, by implication, asking me, you're going to be asking me to talk about acting and my approach to getting actors to do it, helping actors to do it, in relation to what actors normally do, you have to bear in mind that the way that I work, apart from anything else, involves creating a safe place, which is to say long periods of time, and strict disciplines to liberate the actor from worrying about anything other than being in the character and being centered in the character and where the character would be. But I create a working environment that removes a lot of the natural worries, concerns and responsibilities that an actor ordinarily has. I liberate the actor, I relieve the actor of a lot of those worries. So your standard actor that you've been talking to with the standard script has got insecurities that are unfortunate and they're wrong, but they're inevitable, and I don't blame the actor for them.
Right.
Which is to say, what has an actor got to hang on to when he or she receives the script, a conventional script for a movie or for a play? Not a lot, basically. I thought you were going to say, incidentally, and this is important, I thought you were about to say that many actors you talk to, the first thing they look at is they think, how can I find this character in myself? Now that's a whole other thing that I would discourage actors from doing, because for my money, actors are actually not playing themselves, they're playing somebody else, and we'll perhaps talk about that. But whatever the pressure on actors and the lack of received useful procedures that will help them is enormous. So it's inevitable that an actor's going to look at a thing and say, well, what is my character's role in all this? Where does it fit in? It's a natural thing to do, but if we're talking about really making it happen, it is actually as unuseful as it could be. It is actually a red herring.
A lot of your work with actors is hard to talk about because, and this is my analogy, you and the actor are cooking food together that isn't edible in the normal sense. It's stored away, and the actor unconsciously satiates him or herself with it later.
Yes, I think that's, I think gastronomic and culinary analogies are always good news, and that's a good one. The point is, the vast majority of my work, and I'm the only exception slightly, is in fact Peter Lou,
Right.
Mr. Turner,
I wanted to talk about that.
and
Yes.
Topsy-Turvy,
Right.
where we've not embarked on a journey into a blind area and said, well, we're going to discover what the film is by the process of making it. In the case of those three period movies, we have dramatized events. But nevertheless, within that, we've still deployed the same techniques and approaches to acting. So that's important. So the important thing is, we've already said, well, for me it's important to create a working environment for the actor to be able to explore. One of the things that screws up acting in many places, in many contexts, is the actor having to perform in front of other people way, way prematurely.
Yes.
I mean, by the time, if you look at the actors in my films, apart from anything else that you may think about it, what you definitely know that you're looking at is actors acting with great confidence and solidity, because they've prepared how to be the character, how to play the character, and indeed prepared the scenes and rehearsed them behind closed doors. So without the pressure of what is in fact an audience. One of the most ridiculous conventions of plays in the theatre in rehearsal is that everybody watches everybody else all the time.
Yes.
Which is about as dumb as flying an aeroplane with no wings, as far as I'm concerned. It's mad, because it forces, or even having a read-through at the beginning of the rehearsals where people have got to deliver the goods.
Which is often the first thing that's done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, day one, and everyone's arrived having already developed in a sort of half-baked way some indication of a performance when it's way too early.
Right.
And this is counterproductive. So therefore, the working environment that I am committed to make happen always is that, sure, I'll have a get-together of all the actors on day one, which I always humorously call a read-through, but ain't nobody going to read through anything. And this applies whether I'm doing a film or a play. It's just that everyone can say hello, and I can lay out the ground rules. And the ground rules are straightforward. You know, nobody will ever know anything about the piece except what their character knows. And the characters don't yet exist. When I invite an actor to take part in a project, with the exception of these historical projects, I will say, please be in this film. I can't tell you what the film's about. I can't tell you who the character is, because you and I are going to collaborate to create that character. And you will never know anything about anything except what your character knows at all stages. Now, apart, incidentally, and to deal with this quickly, any actors that don't fancy that or that feel insecure, well, that can go not take part. It's a straightforward. And this kind of thing is not everybody's cup of tea. There are actors, and this is relevant to what we're talking about, there are actors who need to think they need to be in control of everything. There are actors who will, when they are offered the part in the film that you are talking about, when they think, what is my role in this, will then go and talk to the director, and we'll talk about the role, we'll want to have a conversation with the director or the writer, whoever it is, about the role of the character in the drama and what it means. And that is absolutely not helpful to the acting at all, actually. But they don't know that. So there's that. I will invite an actor to take part on that basis. Everyone will have met each other and then forget that. Then the real work starts, and it absolutely, all of my work, including on the historical films, starts with sessions, of which there can be many, in which there is only me and the actor. No stage managers, no ADs, and certainly no other actors and nobody else. And these are proper sessions that last for 2 hours or whatever. And these are rehearsals, but that's what they are. I will say to an actor, and this includes when we're even doing historical characters, make a list of real people that you know. And we'll
even
talk
for the historical film.
Okay, when we had, say, Jim Broadbent playing Gilbert in Topsy Turvy, or Spall playing Turner, or the guy Rory Kinnear who plays Henry Hunt, the orator in Peterloo, we read all there as we can about the guy, and then I say, right, let's think of real people we know that we could use as a jumping off, because all the research in the world doesn't make it happen in front of the camera. You've still got to have a flesh and blood characterization. There's the character, which is the idea of a character, and the characterization, which is what the actor actually does, how the actor plays the part. So irrespective, but certainly in the mainstream of my work, it's absolutely essential that we sit down and the actor will come up with a lot of people. My job as storyteller, as dramatist, as the filmmaker, is finally to reject a whole lot of people and select sources. And don't forget, while I'm doing that, I'm working with somebody else in the afternoon and somebody else the next day. Right. I'm starting to think about the possible drama and relate it to the ideas in my head and so on and so forth. But in the end, and this is what you're talking about, all the actor knows is what's happening in these sessions. He has no idea what anybody else is doing, or she. They don't have to think about anything else, and they don't have to try and do anything they're not ready to do. When we finally decide who it is, or usually I come up with 3 people and we merge them together, then I get them to start walking around and be the person.
Yes.
And that's the beginning of doing a characterization. So it's all about acting, not just talking. Yeah. And then, then as soon as we start to wear bits of costume to get the actor to feel, because I think rehearsing in costume is a very important thing. Gradually, we get to the point where we can start to build a background and start to research things we need to, like put characters together. We start to explore relationships by a whole bunch of means, which I can't talk all about. I can't talk about all of them now, but they are improvising and discussing and other kind of exercise things that make contact and all that sort of thing. Right. And so that gradually a world comes into existence, very much pushed and pulled by me, but never imposing in a way that's inorganic for the actor. And if I say to the actor, I think you should do this, and the actor doesn't have to feel right, then it's not right for the character. Then I've got to find the way of motivating it so it does work. And in due course, you then arrive at a situation like the 11-hour improvisation, rehearsing in an old hospital when we were preparing Vera Drake, where the police finally come round to arrest her, and nobody knew anything other than what the character would know. The family didn't know she was an abortionist. They didn't know there were police. She didn't know the last abortion had gone wrong, and there were other actors playing doctors and nurses and things. Nobody knew anything they wouldn't know, and so you get this amazing real improvisation in character, sustained in character for 11 hours, everybody in costume, working in a rehearsal location, which was the basis for 2.5 months later when we went on the location to build a scene, which is the scene in the movie. But you can only arrive at that by everybody being absolutely solid in his or her character and not thinking about not having an overview, not trying to. It's like trying to run or walk in two different directions at the same time, asking an actor to be in the moment, be in the situation, and also worry about the overall thing.
Yeah.
An overview is a damn nuisance for an actor.
Right. I want to talk about that 11-hour rehearsal session you're talking about. Improvisation for Vera Drake. There's people listening right now that are of the mind that there was so much gold there that was happening, what they call lightning in a bottle, and you have to catch it. And you didn't catch it. You were just observing, making notes.
No, I wasn't. Hold the line. Okay. I was not making notes.
Sorry.
I was simply observing it and absorbing it and thinking, great, no, yes, no, yes. But the point is that wasn't hit, and this is a this is a fundamental truth about making art. First of all art, in no matter what medium, is a synthesis of improvisation and order. You improvise on the canvas, on the piano, on the page, and then you put order to it. What we're talking about when we're talking about this 11-hour improvisation sustained in character is setting up this situation in totally thoroughly, and then seeing what happens. Some things were inevitable. I mean, it was inevitable that the police would arrest her and take her to the police station. So we rehearsed in an old disused hospital. At one end of the hospital was this apartment, which had been used by doctors and nurses on night shifts. That for months had been in the rehearsals, the Drake family's apartment. At the other end of the hospital, which they didn't obviously know about, in a big hospital ward, we'd set up a police station, complete with fingerprinting and all the rest of it. And the police actors had been preparing their characters and their relationships and all that. But we'd even had a 2-day session with a retired police superintendent who had been around at the time before the Abortion Act, who knew about these things and so on and so forth. So everybody knew what they had to know. Certain things were inevitable, that she would be arrested and taken and put away and fingerprinted and all the rest of it. But there's some things you didn't know what was going to happen. For example, the son, played by Daniel Mays, in the improvisation, simply walked away, went out and disappeared. He didn't want to know. Well, that doesn't happen in the movie because we negotiated, he and I, why he would stay and what he's at, which was more useful dramatically. But the important thing, relating to your question about capturing the magical moments in the bottle, is nobody should confuse the sketchbook with the final painting. Nobody should confuse the improvisation with the artifact. The improvisation for just that event took 11 hours. The whole movie lasted less than 2.5 hours. So what we're talking about is 2.5 months later, the actors reconvening with me in the location in the East End of London, in a real apartment, and on rehearsal days, first of all improvising to reinvestigate the event, then through rehearsal, distilling that down to something very, very, very precise indeed, down to the last word, nuance, which was then with 11 characters in a very small apartment, shot by a full-size movie crew, so let's be clear. What was in the final scene in the film was not merely a distillation, simply what happened in the improvisation. The improvisation pointed in the direction of it. Most important of all, it gave all the actors the emotional memory from which to draw. The emotional memory of the improvisation in which to draw to create the finished work. And the finished work is not and is never the same thing as the initial sketch, right? And that's the important thing to remember. So people say to me, well, surely you recorded it, surely you had a camera there. No. It will be first of all, a minute of camera there, I think, okay, where do I put the camera? That I'm starting to make a movie. I'm not there to make a movie. I'm there to prepare a movie that I'm going to make in 2 months later.
You spent 17 years trying to get out of television in the 70s and 80s. Now in this supposed golden age of television we're in now, do you have an inclination to go, because you literally said, I have to quote it. You said, and I really passionately want to have the resources to paint on a much bigger canvas. I can think of nobody on planet Earth right now that can go to Netflix and say, I need $20 million, I have no idea what it's going to be, give it to me, and they'd give it to you. And
no,
you know
it.
No. Oh, I come on.
Sorry, I wish what you were saying was true, but it is not true. It's hard. People.
Forget that question. Would you do a series though?
No.
So many people are doing a series.
But that isn't why I wouldn't do a series. I wouldn't do a series because I sat down with my producer a while back, she has actually produced some television series, and we worked out that there are two main issues. One is that what you'd get for a television series, bizarre though it may seem, is that pound for pound, or if you like, dollar for dollar, what you'd get for a television series is less per minute than what you get for a low-budget movie. That's one, i.e. the budget for doing it.
Yeah.
But more particularly, the reason I'm committed on a practical level to standalone dramas, which say movies, apart from the fact that I believe in cinemas and audiences and big screens and all the rest of it, is because of the way I work. If you said, okay, well, we do episode 1, we spend 6 months in rehearsal and do episode 1, when do you prepare episode 2? You're falling over yourself with episode 1, and they'd all pile up, and it would be, unless you said, well, we could rehearse for 4 years and then go away but I couldn't do that because it would drive me nuts.
But all the people are already created with the actors.
Well, that presupposes that, but no.
You know what I mean? It's not going to be another 6 months.
Anyway, the bottom line is...
I'm trying to persuade.
I don't know who you're trying to persuade and why, but no. But also, the other thing is they don't give out their money without knowing what it's going to be so easily. I mean, I can't really comment on that anymore because I wouldn't. There are people who are. I've spent a year trying to get money to make the next film, and I haven't got anywhere yet. And I do want to make a film on a bigger canvas, but it's people are cautious with their bread.
As Peterloo was going on, I was like, well, this massacre has to happen. And it has to happen in this space that's like, was that just a challenge you wanted to do for yourself as a filmmaker? Or, because it just seemed like there's nothing else like that in any of your movies.
No, there isn't. But then the answer lies in what it was about. I mean, I wanted to make a film about the Peterloo massacre and what it was about. So the question of, I mean, I haven't made the film, I didn't make the film with its great massacre sequence for an arty reason or for the sake of having of doing something. That's what the film demanded. That's what happened. That's what we were dramatizing. And the important thing is, as far as I'm concerned, is that it may be an epic scale film compared with your average Mike Leigh film, but it's still about people. I'm still looking at people close up in a three-dimensional way, in a humane way, I hope, in a compassionate way. Even the crooks and baddies, you look at it, you say, well, that's what they're like. There's a people, So in a way, it's just the same kind of canvas. It's just a bigger canvas. It doesn't become abstracted or generalized or become impressionistic just because it's, in inverted commas, epic. It's still about what happens to a large number of individuals, which we call society.
Yes, and to give you an example of how you still have those wonderful micro moments, one of my favorite moments in the movie is when Bessie holds the paper for Hunt. Can you just tell me how that came about?
Yes, I can. I mean, as a matter of fact, that's a really classic case of, that is happened out of nothing, because this actress came along straight from the very good drama school at Manchester, and the two actors came from there, straight out of drama school. And she came along, and I put her in that role, and we had an improvisation, and that happened in the improvisation. It came out of no, she just had the character. She was really good. I mean, she's very, very smart. And it happened in the improv, and I fixed it and put it in the scene, and it's just marvellous, you know. And what's fascinating is that everybody talks about it, you know. She's actually got work from it and everything, you know.
That's what makes it.
She's called Bryony Miller, by the way, and I think it's a name to watch.
Yeah. I find it fascinating that you feel like you can watch your movies easily. A lot of filmmakers, for some reason, can't.
Well, there's a reason that's very clear.
I think it's because other filmmakers have a baby that is miscarriaged.
Oh, you're right.
And they see the miscarriage every time a little bit of a miscarriage every time they go see that movie.
No, it's true. I know filmmakers who say, I can't bear to watch. And the reason is that, you know, they didn't have the actor they wanted, and they had to change the ending, and they had to recut it, and they didn't, you know, they couldn't do such and such because they were told there wasn't enough time, et cetera, et cetera. So the resulting film is not the film they really wanted to make.
Right.
And that's what you're talking about by the partly miscarried baby. I have been extremely lucky for the last 100 years in making 21 films with which nobody has interfered, and nobody includes Amazon Studios, who backed Peterloo, who did not interfere with it one iota. Wow. They were totally supportive. They gave me 110% freedom, and they were nothing but positive all the way down the line. And therefore, you know, though there are some films of mine that I like more than others, there are no films where I feel this isn't my film, not the film I wanted to make. Everything that's there is what I wanted to do. And therefore I can actually watch them. I don't watch them every night, like Gloria Swanson in Sunset Boulevard, but I can watch them. And I do, especially if it's in front of an audience and I'm going to ask a question or something.
My dad is 83, and he's not doing so well health-wise. So last week I went and I watched Meantime with him. He had never seen one of your movies, I don't think. But there's two things that he said in the middle of it. He said, these people are like real people. And why is this so good? And I think that those were very interesting things to say. And I think that the worse movies get, the better Mike Leigh movies become in our mind.
Well, I agree.
And I think that if filmmakers had just a little bit of what you do with, maybe not 6 months to rehearse and to develop the characters, but 2 days to rehearse, that would help everything. If they had the way that you size up a situation and able to adjust, if they even had that, even if they had a script, but they had that aspect of your thing, that would make movies better. All of this is to say, do you feel like it's your duty to try and pass this process on?
No. No, I don't, because it's very idiosyncratic what I do. I mean, it's very, it serves the particular kind of films that I want to make. I did early on. I used to think, oh, well, this is the thing. Everyone should do this, and I don't think that at all. I think if anybody wants to take any aspect of it, and in a way that's what you're talking about. I mean, you know, to me, it's kind of like hardly rocket science. That the more you prepare something, the better it is, i.e. the more an actor has got some sort of preparation, the better the performance on film is going to be. And I mean, the idea of just showing up on the day with nothing other than having learnt the lines and hoping that it'll be in any way real is optimistic, to say the least. But no, I am not disposed to proselytize. I'm not disposed to suggest that anybody else does what I do or how I do it. And to be honest, though there are some simple aspects of what I do, anyone could have a go at if they wanted. There are other things that I get up to that we're not talking about here, which are quite esoteric and make things happen, which will, I suspect, without wanting to be arrogant about it, will cease to be when I cease to be.
Mike Leigh, I thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope we can do this again.
Thank you.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of IFP, the Independent Filmmaker Project. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.